What does closure mean? Why do we need closure? Closure is the desire for answers to leave no room for uncertainty. Seeking answers and resolutions in order to put something behind us and to move on. Closure gives us a sense of control and understanding, and it serves as a platform that we can ultimately move on from. Without closure, our brains are constantly disrupted, kicking into hyperdrive and going wild with all the possible reasons and scenarios. And of course, jumping to all sorts of conclusions. Closure is typically talked about within the context of the ending of a relationship, whether it was a sudden breakup,
Breakups are the worst.
the untimely passing of a loved one, or even just getting fired from your job.
You're fired.
Fired?
We just can't help but think, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? And our minds just continually search for some form of justification. The need to know this reason, the reason why a relationship is ending, is because we live our lives as a story. And it's pretty difficult to give a story a proper ending when it just ends abruptly in the middle. And we're not the ones to write that ending.
I didn't write that.
And this need for closure extends beyond just personal relationships into the fictional stories that we actually consume. There are countless TV shows that have drawn us in, have us really invested in the characters and the plot, only to be prematurely cancelled before it reaches any form of conclusion. Or a film that just ends completely on a cliffhanger. And that brings me to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And so I just got back from watching this film, and this film is visually stunning. It's amazing. The first film in the series took animation to a new level. It broke that Pixar mold and created a new fresh landscape for animation. And this sequel does not disappoint. It takes everything up another notch. Everything is even crazier. It's just so much going on, and it's just so stimulating. Every single frame in this film is a piece of art. You could literally just pause it anywhere and just save that as your screensaver. There's just so much detail and effort gone into building out the world and designing the different universes. Each different universe has a different art style. Sometimes it varies a little bit, sometimes it varies a lot, but they're all distinct to, the main character that lives within that universe. And the universe itself, the art style, just makes the universe a character in itself. There are of course way more Spider-Man in this film than the first film, and we revisit some of the older characters that we got to know in that film, and those characters are fleshed out even more. And I really enjoyed the way they blended mediums. Like, obviously Spider-Man doesn't just exist within, this specific animation types. He exists in all types of mediums, live action, animated, different types of animation. And they're all vastly different, but they all just meld so well together. But I will say that one of the cons of the film is that it feels like there's a lot of setup and not a lot of payoff. And that sort of brings me to my entire point here. I went online and it looks like the ending of the film is pretty divisive. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the film ends on a complete cliffhanger, and it literally ends with the words "to be continued." And I was definitely frustrated by this ending to the film. Probably like a lot of people, I didn't realize that this movie was going to be split into two. I didn't realize, it was a part one of two. I was just so engaged in the build-up of the third and final act of this film. I literally could sense that it was just going to end suddenly. I felt like the build-up was happening, but the movie was sort of running along. I felt like we're at the tail end of the film. Didn't feel like there was enough time to wrap up everything. And with the amount of care that was put into this movie, I just didn't think they were going to just try and rush to the end. And then when it ended, I just felt empty, unsatisfied, and I was confused and a little frustrated because I just wanted answers. I wanted closure. But the more I think about it, the more ridiculous it seems to be, getting angry about not getting closure to a film that you literally just watched, compared to just say like a multi-year relationship ending or something. And the more I think about it, the more frustrated I was that it just ended like that. It sort of means that I actually really was invested and I really enjoyed the characters. I just wanted to see more of the film, and that frustration stems from, that disappointment that we didn't get to see more. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. The runtime for Across the Spider-Verse is around 2 hours, 20 minutes. It's long, but it doesn't feel long at all. The pacing is great. The time just flew by. And if they were to tell me that the third movie was just going to play right after that for another 2.5 hours, I would have happily just sat there and watched the rest. That's just how engaged I was. So initially I was pretty concerned because, there was a 4 to 5 year wait between, the first film and this film. But Just seeing online, they actually developed the second and third movie together, and the release date is expected for March 2024. So it doesn't look like I'm going to be waiting that long to get closure. But this is just how Hollywood is sort of targeting human need for closure. It's not the first time they've done this. They've done this so many times. You've got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, you've got Mockingjay from the Hunger Games series, you've got Breaking Dawn from the Twilight Saga, and of course you've got Infinity War and Endgame. But I guess the biggest difference for me here was that I just wasn't expecting it to be a two-parter. I didn't know, and without that expectation, it ending so abruptly, it was just a bit of a shock. But through reflecting on the idea of closure through the lens of, fictional storytelling, I've come to realize that when it comes to fictional storytelling, you normally get the closure that you're looking for. But that just doesn't marry up with, experience in real life. All the loose ends that are out there don't just get tied up neatly by the end. Life can get pretty messy, and you can't really afford to just be pulling at those threads. You can't just expect there to be a sequel to an abrupt ending to a chapter of your life. There's no guarantee that there's going to be some follow-on or spin-off that's going to completely answer all the burning questions you had.
Hey, wait a minute, what happened? What happens next?
Sometimes we either just need to find that answer within ourselves, or learn to accept that we're never going to get that answer and be okay with that. We have to learn to accept that uncertainty and move on to the next chapter anyway. Anyways, hopefully that made sense. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.